Welcome to Burn the Ship, the podcast that helps entrepreneurs go all in on their business, and we introduce them to professionals that can help them to do so. Today, we have a very special guest. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rod. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Joe, please introduce yourself and the name of your book.
So I'm Joe Jones, and the name of my book is Dancing with Roomba. I've been in robotics for about more than 40 years, and the most recent thing that I have done is to write a book about the development of the Roomba robot vacuum cleaner.
Awesome, awesome. We so look forward to learning more about your book. But before we do that, we want to learn a little bit more about your journey and how you got there. And we understand that time is one of our most valuable resources. So tell us a little bit about your story, Joe.
Sure. I have been interested in science and technology since as long as I can remember. When I was 5 years old, I tried to build a satellite. It didn't work. It didn't work at all, but I tried. And I went on from there. So eventually I ended up going to college at MIT. I thought that I was going to become an experimental physicist, and it went well as far as undergraduate went. But when I got to graduate school, I couldn't find any niche in physics that I was really passionate about. So I quit graduate school. I took a trip around the world for a year. When I got back, they were hiring at the MIT Artificial Intelligence Lab, and they were kind enough to give me a job.
Nice.
And it was there that I discovered robots are my true calling. It was such a fascinating place. There was all these high-powered people with high-powered ideas and all this really cool equipment. I just loved working there, and I thought that I would stay there forever. So while I was there, this really interesting event came along, and it was sponsored by the Mobile Robot Group at the AI Lab. And during January one year, they handed out kits of parts and sensors and all motors and all sorts of things. And they let anybody associated with the lab build whatever kind of robot they wanted to build. So I built this little robot that cleaned my floor. It was mostly out of Lego, and it sort of worked. So it made me very curious. Why can't I go to the store and buy a robot that cleans my floor? I couldn't tell because it's my experience has suggested that it ought to be possible. But I wasn't interested in starting a company at that point. I loved working at the AI lab, and I wanted to keep on doing that. But then the lab ran out of money, and all the research staff, which included me, got laid off. So I had to find another job, and by then, of course, I was addicted to robots, so it had to be a robot job. So I found a company called Denning Mobile Robotics, local to me in Massachusetts, and I started working there. But Denning made these big robots, big, expensive robots. And while I was at the AI lab, I had learned this new paradigm for programming robots that allowed really small, really cheap robots to do really cool things. So I proposed to the folks at Denning, why don't we develop a little robot that cleans the floor? So they let me and another guy work on a project as sort of a back burner project because that was not the focus of Denning. And after a few months, we got to the point where we thought the thing is working. We demonstrated it to the whole company, including the president. And we thought anybody with half a brain can see that this is the tremendous potential of this thing. But 10 days later, both I and my accomplice were fired.
Oh, no.
So the president didn't, well, what he told us was, or he said about it was that we were just playing with toys, that the little robots were not where it was at. So fortunately, I discovered that iRobot had been founded about a year before, and they were kind enough to hire me as the first full-time employee at the company, first full-time hire. So they liked the idea of a little robot that cleans the floor, but we didn't have any money, right? We were living from paycheck to paycheck, and the only way that we made money was by getting some company or research institution to ask us to build a particular kind of robot. We'd build a robot, we'd ship it off to them, and then we would get the money to make payroll at the end of the month. Sometimes we didn't have the payroll at the end of the month, but we kept working on it. So it wasn't until 8 years later that iRobot got into a strong enough financial position that I and a colleague thought, maybe it's time to try this again. So then we proposed Roomba to management and went through the same process. We got $10,000 and two a budget of $10,000 and 2 weeks of our time to just work on that and nothing else. And we developed another little robot. We demonstrated to the not the whole company, but a subset of the company, including the CEO. And but this time, instead of being fired, they decided, well, we'll put a team together and actually build this thing. So that was how Roomba got started.
Oh, that is awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Joe, I always like to go back to the origin of things. You shared with us in the beginning that you tried to build your first satellite at 5. Now, is it where you had influence from your parentals or your guardians and that's what they did? They were scientists, or were you just a special person?
Well, I don't know that I was a special person, but no, I think my influence was from television.
Okay.
I remember my father was a garage mechanic and a bus driver and the assistant mail carrier. I came from a very tiny town. Only 256 was the population of my town, and my mother was a housewife. So I got my inspiration from TV. I remember seeing, I think it was the Today Show, and there were people standing around, and they were holding this model of a satellite that the United States had recently launched. I think it was like the Vanguard one or the Explorer one. I forget which, and it seemed small enough. I thought, I could build that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And there we go
yeah.
from there. And another thing I want to ask, because it's not always usual where you get to go to school and then you get to go around the world. Tell us a little bit of the places that you went that helped to start build you up from there. Where all did you visit when you took that immediate trip?
Well, there's like 18 countries, I think,
Oh,
around the
oh,
world.
okay.
I started traveling west. Well, I lived in Boston, so I started traveling west. I wanted to travel west, so I would always be, so I wouldn't be sort of going the wrong way, chasing the time zones. I would always
Mm-hmm.
stay up later rather than trying to wake up, go to bed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I left. I went up to Alaska. From Anchorage, I flew to Japan. I spent about a month in Japan. Went to Okinawa. I went to Taiwan for a few days. I went to Hong Kong and Singapore. And the very coolest thing was that this was the 1980s, and China had been a closed society. And when I left home in June of that year, 1981, I think it was, you couldn't go to China. But by the time I got to Hong Kong, things had changed, and you could go to this little office in Hong Kong, and they would give you a visa, and you could go into China. So I got to be in the first wave of people, the first wave of tourists going to China, and so I went all over China and met some other fellow travelers who were doing that. After that, I spent a month in New Zealand and a month in Australia. I went trekking in Nepal.
Okay.
Went to Thailand for a few days. Um, After that, let's see, it was in Israel on a kibbutz volunteering for a month. Went to Egypt, to Rome, and then Germany and the Netherlands and the UK. And then I came back home.
Awesome. I asked that question because I'm sure with those particular experiences, they helped to build you up and you saw different things and it helped you throughout your career. And that's why I always wanted to ask, where did you go and where did some of those influences came from? So now jumping back into your story, you just created the robot that cleans the floor. Tell us a little bit about after it was created and where things went from there.
Well, initially we launched the robot. This was September 2002 when Roomba was launched, and at first things were totally blew our expectations. We had ordered 25,000 units from the factory, and those sold out quickly. Um, then the following year, the iRobot decided they'd ramp up production because clearly people love this thing. And they noticed at the end of the close to the end of the year that there were all these robots sitting around in warehouses and not being sold. And then Pepsi put on this commercial in which Dave Chappelle played a boyfriend waiting to go out with his date. And while he's waiting, this robot vacuum cleaner comes down the hallway. It ends up stealing his pants, and he said there was nothing he could do about it. After that,
Mm-hmm.
Roomba sales took off.
Okay.
It's unimaginable to me that why that would happen, but that seemed to be the thing that sparked additional sales of Roomba. So the I like robots, right? I was addicted to robots. What I thought would happen next, I thought that the success that Roomba brought to iRobot and another robot called PackBot was successful about the same time. I thought that, after years of wandering in the wilderness, finally we have this income stream, and now we can start investigating all sorts of different robot applications for all sorts of different areas. That was not what happened. Instead, and of course, that was what I was interested in because I like new things. Um, but what happened was that the presumably prudent people at the top said, now we have something, we can stop taking these crazy risks, we can exploit what we've got.
Hmm.
So that's what the company did. But it took me 4 years to figure out that iRobot wasn't really interested in building any more revolutionary products. So if I wanted to do that, I'd have to leave and start another company.
Did you move on and did you continue to create things? Tell us about that journey after.
Yes, I managed to convince several like-minded people at iRobot to leap into the abyss with me. And we left the company not knowing what we were going to build. It was some kind of robot application. We thought there were many of them out there. And the thing that we found was a very odd thing that I had never heard of before. But when you go to the garden store and buy a potted plant, the potted plant did not come from outside the garden store. It came from a nursery or greenhouse farm where they have many acres and thousands to millions of plants sitting on the ground. Now, one step in the lifetime of these plants is that you take the seedling, you put it in a pot, you set the pots side by side out on a growing bed,
Hmm.
and the plants start to grow. But when they get a certain height, they start to grow into each other,
Hmm.
and you can't allow that
Hmm.
because then they'll damage each other. So there is this thing called spacing, where you send basically an army of people out to the fields and you move the plants apart so that they have room to grow. So we thought, if we can't build a robot that does that, we're in the wrong business.
Right.
So that's what we built. We built a robot. It was the prosaic name of the HV100,
Okay.
and it went out into fields or nurseries, greenhouses and nursery farms, and it moved the plants apart.
Okay.
So
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, I guess finding ways to make things a little bit more efficient is what you do with your robotics, but I would have never thought about using that application for plants. And the HV was what? What was the H in the V? What did that stand for?
the H was supposed to stand for harvest vehicle.
Oh, okay. Simple enough. Simple enough.
Yep.
So you created that. That get you guys some more success with that. You were you able to take it, all over the country, all over the world? Tell us about some of the success for that.
Well, it was mixed.
Okay.
We were VC backed, and I think we got a total of about $25 million worth of investment going into harvest automation,
Hmm.
and we were in business for I know some number of years, and we did sell robots all over the country, and now in a few foreign countries. And the company Harvest Automation is still in business. However, it did not take off the way that our VC backers hoped that it would. So there was a restructuring, and the VCs got out, and it's kind of a smallish company, and it's still supplying, it's still servicing its customers around the world.
Yeah, one thing that I can tell based off of your story so far is that that did not stop you from getting out here and creating other things. Did you create something next after the HV product?
Yes. When the market for the robot plant movers was not taking off, the Harvest decided to pivot into another application that was warehouse robots that go out and ideally pick things out of bins and take them back to complete an order. But I was less interested in that because I like the robots, right? And
Hmm.
the warehouse robots, the big challenge is building this huge piece of software called the warehouse management system. And that is the thing which decides where all the robots have to go and where all of the inventory is at any moment. And the robots are basically simple. So I was trying to move on. So I went to a conference. It was called Robo Madness that they used to hold in Cambridge every year. And while I was there, I ran into an acquaintance of mine, and he said that he was working on a project to build a little robot that would weed home gardens. And I thought that's cool because I had tried to think of another agricultural robot while I was working at Harvest, and weeding farm fields is an obvious choice, but lots of people were working on that. And when I examined it, I didn't have any ideas that were better, I thought, than what other people were already doing. So I put that aside. But as soon as I heard about as I thought about a robot that would weed home gardens, I thought that you could actually do. I can actually build a robot with a reasonable cost that will succeed at that task, and hopefully people will like it. So uh, I and this other guy started working on that, and eventually, I brought in some other folks who were interested. And the original guy who had the idea decided that he wanted to do something else, so he left. But then the rest of us formed a company called Turtle Corporation, and we spent several years developing a little robot called Turtle that weeds home gardens.
That was able to get that, you were able to get that off the ground and going. And oh,
Yeah,
that's them right
actually,
there. Yeah, let's look at it.
it's small enough I can actually show you
Yes,
it.
for sure.
It looks
Absolutely.
like this.
Okay.
It was solar powered,
Mm-hmm.
so it just lives in the garden, collects energy when it has enough. It goes running around the garden, and it has a little weed whacker on the bottom
Okay.
that dispatches the weeds.
Nice,
So,
nice.
uh,
Now that's awesome. And the thing about you, Joe, is you've always been an early adapter on trying to find cutting edge things to make life more efficient utilizing AI and robots. But you know, there are people on the other end of things that do not want to change anything. They want to still have the rakes and the hose and still the vacuums. Do you mind sharing with us, for a person who is a late adopter, why should they go ahead and embrace AI and robotics going forward and show them how it can be a little bit more efficient for their life?
well, I wouldn't think about it as embracing robotics and AI. All that any of these products do is to make some aspect of life easier or more pleasant. Um, in fact, I think I'm kind of rare in that I I in a sense I don't want any robots. I don't want robots. I don't want a humanoid trundling around my house.
Hmm.
What I want are certain things to be done for me. Like I'd like to throw my clothes on the floor in the evening, and then the next time I want clothes, I open the drawer and there are clean clothes. I would like for a robot or some robotic application to make that connection and to do all the other things that I don't especially want to do. So if you think of robotics in that way, you're not supporting robots and AI. That's just sort of a behind the things scene that makes happen the things that you want to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm confident that over your journey from the first satellite to traveling around the world to helping all of these companies build these innovative products, that you have acquired and nurtured a bunch of business skills and best practices that have helped you to be successful. Do you mind sharing with the audience a couple of those best practices that maybe they can add to their mix and try to reach toward that same success?
Sure. The skills that I have acquired mostly relate to startups because I'm interested in startups. I'm interested in building revolutionary products. That's the thing that's fun for me.
Hmm.
Now, I realize that I don't have all the skills to start a company. So I say that I have started two companies, Harvest Automation and Turtle Corporation. But what that really meant was I found somebody who was willing to be the CEO and to do all of the CEO stuff that I didn't want to do. So when you're thinking about starting a company, you really have to complement your own skills. Nobody typically has enough skills to do the whole thing. So go and find the people that you need to help you. And I've also always thought about extreme innovation in the robotics field. The way that I have managed to succeed is by not accepting the standard solution to some problem, but rather any application that you're contemplating, especially an application for a robot, you have to rethink that application from the ground up. You have to think about it in terms of what are a robot's strengths, and rather than what are people's strengths, because you tend to think of the solutions that we already have, and they work well because we're people and we know how to do that. But robots have different strengths and different weaknesses from people. You have to recast the task in a way that a robot can do it easily.
Mhm. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, the name of the show is Burn the Ship. You have had a collection of businesses and ideas. You've had a successful career, and a lot of people just fade on off into the sunset there. But Joe, you decided to burn the ship and write a book. Now, tell us, what was there an event that happened that made you say, you know what? I am going to burn the ship and tell everybody about my history and things like that. Did something happen to make you write that book?
Well, I feel like my career has been a series of burning ships, actually. There wasn't a particular thing. Actually, it occurred to me right after Roomba became successful that people would be interested in a book like this. Um, and one of the reasons for this book in particular was that um, I learned this even better as I started doing research for the book. But people had tried to build robot vacuum cleaners over and over again for almost half a century.
Mm.
Surprised me, but the first serious attempt to build a robot vacuum cleaner came in about 1956 or 57 at Whirlpool Corporation. And a guy named Donald Moore actually invented and patented a robot that was designed to clean the floor. It turned out it would not have been practical, and Whirlpool rather never tried to market it. But that was just the first example. And then over and over again, a corporation would spend millions of dollars trying to develop something, and it would just vanish after a few years.
Mhm.
So uh, that made me think that people are interested in robot vacuum cleaners, and maybe they would like to know the story of how the first successful one actually came about.
Yes. Now, inside of there, you just tell about the journey. Tell us a little bit. Give us a little preface on the book so people can get that interest and get out there and get it from you.
Well, it starts with my AI lab experience, where I tried to build this little robot that cleaned the floors, and goes through the journey of the failure at Denning, um, and finally getting to iRobot, and it goes through a project that happened right before Roomba was kind of a disaster. We tried to build this big robot.
Mhm.
It was going to be an auto scrubber. You may not know the term, but you've seen them in buildings late at night. They drive along.
Mm,
Usually,
mhm.
there's a guy walking behind it or riding on it, and it
Mhm.
cleans the floor. We
Mhm.
tried to build a robotic version of that, and it was a disaster. The team kept getting bigger and bigger, and the machine itself getting more and more complex and more expensive, until finally the sponsors pulled the plug and nothing came of it.
Mhm.
And it was at that time that a colleague of mine said, "Well, maybe the problem is so big. Maybe we should build a little robot that cleans home floors."
Mhm.
I hadn't told him about my previous attempts to do that, but that was how uh, that's related in the book. And another curious thing that happened was that, like I said, there were many, many failures. There were like at least 2 dozen patented attempts over the years to build robot vacuum cleaners. And at the time that we were working on Roomba, another company, Electrolux, who was at one time they sold every fifth vacuum cleaner sold in the world was an Electrolux vacuum cleaner.
Mhm.
So they declared that they were going to build a robot vacuum cleaner. And by the time that we had started working on Roomba, it was several years in the past. Um, and we thought, well, it's going to go like all the other cleaners. But then, about a year before we launched, Electrolux put their robot vacuum cleaner on the market,
Oh.
and we thought, whoa,
Yes.
maybe this is the end for us.
Mhm.
So I tell that story, and that's as fascinating a story as anything. I was very, very fortunate that I was managed to contact the guy who ran that project at Electrolux, and he kindly shared with me a bunch of the stories behind it. Electrolux took 10 years to build their vacuum. Roomba took 3.
Hmm.
And at the end, the Electrolux vacuum was about $1,500 and Roomba opened at $200. So that story and a few others about robots are in the book.
Yeah, that is going to be an interesting read. Tell us the name of the book again.
It's called Dancing with Roomba, Cracking the Robot Riddle and Building an Icon.
Awesome. Awesome. To everyone that's watching, I urge you to go and get that book. That way you can learn a little bit more about Joe's story and some of the things that it took for him to gather that success. And Joe, we truly do appreciate you sharing those things about your journey, about your businesses, definitely those business skills and about the book. But now we want to turn the page just a little bit and talk about Joe. So let's just say that things are continuing to go well because you've had super successful career. We're going to do all that we can to try to help that book to be a bestseller. And let's just say that time and money's no issue for Joe. What would you do in your spare time on some of those bucket list type things?
Well, I'm of an age that I should start checking off those things. So one of the things that I am going to do is do some more traveling. My wife and I are going to spend some time traveling and hopefully to go to several exotic places. But I haven't lost my interest in robots.
Hmm.
I would really like to find a few more interesting robot applications, and I won't be full time working on a robot company anymore. But I could imagine, I would hope for finding a few companies that were interested in developing a useful robot, and I'd like to help them.
Awesome, awesome. Did you have a specific place on the list that you were trying to go in one of those exotic places? Is it further south, or did you have one of those places in mind just yet?
Oh, well, my wife has never been to Japan, so
Okay,
she'd really like to
okay,
go there.
okay.
And I think we're also going to hopefully do a river cruise in Europe.
Okay. Well, I can tell you're a lifelong learner, so you'll probably come up with another couple robots before we know, and we didn't even know you came up with it. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. And the next thing I want to ask you, Joe, if the people that are watching today have questions about your journey, they have questions about the book, or just want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Sure, go to my website, dancingwithroomba.com, all one word, and you'll find contact information for me there.
Awesome, awesome. And we truly do appreciate you coming on the show with us today, Joe. You have made a lot of things insightful for us, especially about the robots. I have seen those Roombas all over my whole life. And it's like one of those things that when I came across you, I was super excited. And we always honor our guests by giving you guys the last word. And we want to do the same for you, Joe. So if you can, please look into the camera and tell the people something good.
So don't worry about robots taking over. I am not concerned that humanoid robots are going to take over. I think that the vision that I tried to describe a little earlier is what's actually going to happen. Um, Robotics will become an invisible servant. It will do the things that you want done, and you won't have to worry about how it does it. Just the way, in the same way that your furnace keeps your home warm, and you don't worry about how it works at all.
Hmm. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us today, Joe.
It's been great fun.
Excellent. And to everyone that is watching, be kind and thanks.